Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Today, I have Anna Parker-Naples joining me, and Anna is a best-selling author and host of Entrepreneurs Get Visible podcast. Welcome, Anna.
Hey, Amy. Great to be here.
Well, it's a real treat, and I'm so excited to share your why, your focus on why with our audience today.
Yeah, and it's kind of a big story. So when we were discussing before we started recording exactly what we were going to cover, Amy said, what was the one pivotal moment? And there's been so many, which hopefully we're going to kind of delve into a little bit today.
Definitely. So let's share with the audience what it is you're doing right now.
Right now, I am helping entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, experts to launch powerful podcasts so that they can get visible. That's one of my catchphrases. So that they can get visible, so they can show people that they are leading the way, so that they can reach more people, so that there can then be that ripple effect. Very often the people I'm speaking to are ambitious, but they have something important to share, be it mindset knowledge, financial knowledge, be it relationship coaching, something that could transform someone's life if they heard the message.
And that's something that's close to your heart because of that transformation that you've gone through, which we're going to share with everyone today, because it hasn't always been that you've been so focused on what you're doing.
No, 10 years ago now, I was told that I was never going to walk again. I was pregnant with my third child. And before I'd had children, I'd been an actress. And to get that news, to expect that the rest of your life you're going to be wheelchair bound, it was just devastating. I'm a very naturally energetic person, and the idea that I was not going to be that version of myself was very, very painful. And I realized after a while that I couldn't stay in that depression, that resentment, that anger about it. So I decided that I would go and see a hypnotherapist who actually was a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. And it was that moment, that 1 hour I spent with him in that chair, that started the catalysts rolling, which changed everything for me.
Have you ever gone back to explain to him?
I wrote to him when I published my first book, Get Visible. Just say, I want you to know that a lot of this is down to you. And he did write back to me briefly. He's very coy about it all. I think in total, I had maybe 4 or 5 sessions with him. And then I explored the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and I've trained in it, and I became a master NLP practitioner. And the more that I learned about myself and how I think, which is essentially what neuro-linguistic programming is, the things we think, the things we say, the things we don't say about ourselves, the more I understood about myself, the more I wanted to get out and help other people to experience this in some way, to experience some transformation in some way. So to go back on that a little bit, that one session showed me how much I was sabotaging myself with my own language. And whilst I went into that session because I was angry about being in a wheelchair, it actually transpired that there was a lot of real negative stuff I was saying about myself, my acting career, my relationships, my family, the fact that I felt resentful that I'd become pregnant unexpectedly, and blaming everybody else, but carrying this weight and this heaviness all of the time. And it was the first person to ever really point out what my language was doing to my state of mind. And one of the things that I would often talk about was how stuck I felt and how overlooked I felt. And I started to realize that many of my own actions had meant that I would be overlooked. Many of the things I said and did and my own belief systems meant that I would notice when I was overlooked and almost brace myself ready for that to happen. And I really believe that had I not had that conversation that day, I would not have realized I could choose to recover. And I was very fortunate in that I wasn't paralyzed in any way. It was much more about how my bones and joints were working or not working. And we basically at home from that day forward changed our language. I stopped talking and complaining about what was going on physically. And within 3 weeks, I was back on my feet, not fully recovered, but I proved that how I thought about myself and how I used my language intentionally and how I used the power of thought intentionally could change everything. And a byproduct of that really was that I realized that the career I'd always wanted to have as an internationally acclaimed performer, that I'd been the one sabotaging that. It hadn't been anyone else's fault. So at this point, I realized that, look, if I don't ever recover, well, I could work from home as a voice actor. People have always, my whole life said, I love hearing your voice. You should work in voice. You should do something with radio. And I set about learning everything I could in order to be a voice actor. And that journey just developed, and it all came together very quickly and very easily. And within a year, not only had I fully recovered, but I was working as a voiceover artist, making commercials for brands all over the world, leading brands all over the world, and particularly in the US, which just 12 months before had just not been on the cards and not even feasible. And from there, my whole audio career really snowballed. As my children were very young, I ended up really focusing on the audio drama side of things. So audio dramas, radio dramas, video gaming as well. A lot of high profile video games, some things behind the scenes in Hollywood movies in terms of motion capture. And then really I found my feet inside audiobooks, and particularly audiobooks of British authors, into really high profile British authors, but that they would use a separate publishing team for the audio over in America. And as a result of that, at the time I felt kind of astonished, but I cornered this niche completely and utterly. And so I was constantly up for awards in New York, Chicago, and in Hollywood. And it was kind of insane. And I think that the reason that happened, the reason I had so much success, was because I'd gone from saying, I'm not going to get jobs, I'm not going to ever be good enough, people are going to overlook me. I decided that I was going to be among the best in that industry. And it was having that attitude about it that changed everything. Because instead of seeing things as a threat or a danger or rejection, I started to see everything as an opportunity, a game, something that was an adventure. And if you those two thought processes are completely different. And so life has and continues to be an adventure and a game. And I don't worry about not achieving. And as a result of not worrying about not achieving, I do achieve quite astonishing results.
That's an incredible story. And, just learning how you stopped playing small or stopped yourself from thinking or resenting things, seeing other people's achievements. And that's a drive that actually manifested. Instead of feeling frustrated and angry and envious, you turn that right around and use those feelings to your benefit.
Yeah, so even now, we were talking off air, if there's something I see that I notice I have feelings of envy or jealousy, I really, really tap into that now, not to dwell on the anger, but to start to think, what's this telling me? What is it I want to be doing? And one of the things that we discussed is I've just now finished writing my second book, which is called Podcast with Impact, which hopefully will be launched in the not too distant future. And I've written all of it whilst we've been in lockdown. Now, the reason that I went back into this audio field, and I'm missing a huge chunk of the story out here, was because I read a book last summer that was so bad about podcasting and about audio that it made me very angry. And it was by someone quite respected within the entrepreneurial spaces. And I was so angry and irritated that someone could put out such shoddy quality content, but it wasn't really about them. The point was that I had all of this knowledge and all of this ability that I was sitting on. And sometimes I think what I've learned to do is be grateful for the moments that make me irritated and annoyed, because they're pointing me in another direction that I can embrace. And as a result of that one book that cost me £11.99 and was the single worst book I have ever read in my life, I now have a very lovely income as a result of the podcast membership, as a result of one-to-one clients who come to me for podcasting. It spurred me on to start my second podcast, Entrepreneurs Get Visible, which had astonishing success when it launched. And now I've written a book about it. And I know that people who read my book won't be thinking, this isn't good enough, because I know that I want to enable other people to have the skills I have, because that's how we make the world a better place.
You should be grateful for that. £11.99, because look where it's taken you.
Best money I've ever spent on the worst book I've ever read.
That's a great return on investment for sure. You know, leaving and blaming the rest of the world to having a very clear why. Share with me what your main driver is behind your purpose of your why.
During the final part of my Master NLP practitioner training, the very last day, it's a month-long training, the very last day you become the guinea pig, where someone is going to use all of the techniques in the Master NLP practitioner suite, plus some hypnotherapy, very advanced hypnotherapy on you. You are that guinea pig. And we ended up doing a session that went on for nearly 12 hours, because the deal is once you start, you're going to come through to have a very powerful breakthrough in some way. And for me, every time I went in, and you go quite deep into trance, I kept coming to this vision that I was on this mountain and that actually I was a leader. I just hadn't realized that I was a leader. And that what my job was to look out, to get up that hill, get up that mountain, get off the treadmill of whatever that treadmill looks like, get up that mountain. And when I'm there, I'm not on my own, because I can see out into the distance with the other mountaintops and see that there are other leaders in the distance, all of them waving their flags, all of them, maybe they have their megaphone, but they too are getting their own people to wake up and come up the mountain with them. And I feel very much that my journey from disabled, depressed, angry to at the very top of, yes, a very niche industry, but one of the hardest industries to crack in the world, in Hollywood, I feel that journey, that there was a message in that journey that I could share for other people. We learn through story. So if I stopped telling that story, if I didn't tell that story, I couldn't then use what I'd been through to help other people. And it's interesting now, because I had this moment when I was in Hollywood. I was up for my 7th award, and they were taking photographs on the red carpet. And I can remember literally as he was taking the photographs, just having this vision that enough was enough. I wasn't just going to share other people's words, that I had a bigger story that I needed to tell. I needed to get on stages to tell it. I needed to write books to tell it. I needed to say my own words. At this point, podcasting wasn't even on the agenda, but that I wanted to coach people, to mentor people, to have dramatic changes in their life. And I thought at first that I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know anyone else in the coaching industry, in the entrepreneurial spaces. I knew nothing, but I felt very purposeful that I was meant to be guiding other people. And I sat on it for a couple of months thinking, I don't know what this looks like, but I feel as though I'm done recording audio dramas and audio books. I felt like that journey had been so powerful for me and created so much opportunity for me, but that I was done with it. And it's interesting talking about this now, because as we record, I'm sitting in my home studio, which used to be our airing cupboard. And it was the only place in the house that fitted the wheelchair, because although I was able to walk in 3 weeks, it actually took me a good couple of years to recover. So where I'm sitting right now is actually an important part of my journey. And it was that feeling that I just had to use my own words to help people. I didn't know what that would look like. And at that point, I decided that I would try and reach out to mums in some way. So I started a business from scratch with no idea at all, called Inspiring Mummy Club. And I made so many mistakes. I couldn't really get the traction, and I couldn't really understand, because I knew I had this message that could help people. And I think that in trying to help people, I was trying to tackle the wrong people. Actually, what makes me tick is people who have already, if you like, instead of being in the dirt, knowing that they're in the dirt, or or they don't know that things can change. I like working with people who do have a glimmer of ambition, who are potentially, those new buds coming up through the soil, because I can take them and I can help them grow. And very quickly, I would say within 6 months to a year of launching that business, which on paper did very, very well, I knew that I had got my messaging slightly wrong. And I was feeling really constrained by talking to just mums. And I say just mums, not negating being a mother. I'm a mother of 3, but that I felt that my message was too powerful. And now I work with leaders, and I work with emerging and aspiring leaders. And for me, that's very rewarding, because I know that if I can help emerging and aspiring leaders and experts to get their messages out there, then it's effectively like handing the megaphone to someone who's going to climb that mountain and help other people get out of the dirt. And I know there's some great analogies in there, but that's really what my work is about. And I think long term, I want to be helping people get their books out there, getting on stages, showing them all of the background that I have in terms of performance. I know how to craft a great talk. I know how to have stage presence. Some of that's natural ability, and some of it's learned. And I feel very much now that much of my life up until when I had children, and then found out I was potentially going to be disabled, so much of that was like training for what I do now. But if you'd asked me at age 25, did I think I would do anything other than acting? And I'd have said, no, there's no way. This is it for me for life. But actually, it's the things I didn't achieve in that career that have given me the biggest insights and the biggest why. There are reasons why that career didn't work for me, because I was playing small.
And from moving from being stuck and resentful into this fantastic positive space, what have you found to be the most rewarding?
I find it rewarding when I see somebody that I've worked with and supported go from not really knowing how to grow a business, not really knowing or recognizing the abilities that they have, to just owning it and the difference that that can make. So, for example, I've got a client at the moment. I know she's very good. I know she's one of the best in the UK at what she does in a very, very niche field. She's been refusing to accept that. So every time someone compliments her about her work, she'll say, oh, no, I'm not that good. She's worked with all of the leading people around the world in her industry, and yet she'll downplay it. Now, since we've been working together, and also as a result of that, then wasn't earning the kind of money that's sitting there waiting, because she is one of the world's leading experts. She just hasn't owned it. And as a result of working with me, not only has she kind of built her tribe, so she's got those people, she's got that megaphone, she understands now the mechanisms to do it. She's podcasting. She is understanding the business mechanics to build her tribe, to monetize her own business. She feels much more worthy because she's able to charge more, which gives her more gravitas, which gives her more credibility. And it all feeds into things. It all feeds into itself to enable her then to support other people in that industry to grow and expand and have the knowledge that she has. So it's that ripple effect really keeps me going.
And what if you hadn't have got out of that wheelchair?
I'd still be I'd be putting a smile on a lot of things, holding a lot of anger and resentment. I don't think I would have recovered. I think without neurolinguistic programming, without hypnotherapy, without a conscious use of language, I would still be disabled. I would have believed that I couldn't recover because a doctor had told me. I would have felt angry. I doubt that we'd still be married because I was so angry and resentful, always with a smile. It's that, but it was really inside how I felt about myself. I wouldn't have half the income, not even a fraction of it. I would probably have tried going back into performing on stage, and I wouldn't have got anywhere because I wouldn't have believed that I could have, even though I really wanted it. So life would not be the way it is now. One of the things that drives me is that my children see me create whatever area of business I want to create. and they see me go hard at it. They see me determined to work through the failure. I have many things that I've done that haven't worked. And I keep finding, well, what's the thing I've got to learn here? What have I got to learn? What's this teaching me? And it's my willingness to do that and throw myself at whatever project I'm going into for as long as it feels right that enables me to have the growth that I have had. So now I support, in any given year, a good few hundred people in terms of increasing their visibility, or in terms of getting their message out there in some way, whether that's working one-to-one or in my memberships or my masterminds. And that's really rewarding. And then when I released my first book, which felt such a journey to share everything that I had uncovered about myself. It's a very vulnerable, open book about my journey, but it's also very practical in the things that once you've got over yourself, the things you can actually do to make a difference in your own industry, in your own field, to stand out quickly. Getting that book out there felt incredibly raw because it was everything that I'd uncovered over that last 10-year journey. And the interesting thing is that once it was out there, I get messages on an almost daily basis from people who read it and are touched by it. And I think that was always what I wanted it to do.
So stripping yourself back and being vulnerable to the audience has actually helped you with your voice and your visibility. And that's something you've shown and demonstrated. And ironically, where you thought you'd outgrown your audio, your sort of voice background, actually, that's now becoming again your main focus. And people had always told you right from the start when you were young that it was your voice, and yet you didn't let it out publicly.
Interestingly, one of the things that would often be said to me was that my voice, I sound young. And that always felt like a criticism, that I was a little girl. And on the one hand, that's what got me a lot of audio work, particularly in the US. But to feel as though you sound like a young girl, when actually you want, as a young actor, I wanted the parts that gave me lots of gravitas. I used to worry that my voice wasn't enough, right, that my accent wasn't as posh or proper as it could be as a classical actress. But actually, I think it's my ability to go with the flow and let myself speak, let myself have my natural exuberance, and also know those moments to bring it down and bring it close and bring it in, that actually makes what I do quite appealing now. So my work now predominantly is through my podcast. That's the main way through Entrepreneurs Get Visible that people will find me. My podcast is quite popular in the US particularly. And again, it's that they like a British voice. And I know that because my voice gets out into other places, that I impact people's lives. And I love now that, as with the podcast membership and coaching people how to do this and make it work for their business, that there are so many people around the world who will be reached and touched that the podcast hosts won't even know they've done it, but it will. It's that ripple effect that as a result of me deciding to go on that audio journey and get to the top of an audio field all those years ago when I was broken.
And how does that feel to know that you are literally changing people's lives?
I think it's everything. I think it's everything beyond being a mother, beyond family. It gives me incredible sense of purpose.
Because, I was going to say, is that your highest purpose?
My highest purpose is to awaken. And part of being, here we go, this is the Get Visible. Part of to awaken is to turn the lights on. I think that many of us are incredible beings. And we are not allowing ourselves to be those incredible beings. And I feel when I completed that Master NLP training and I realized that I was a leader, that was the moment I felt switched on. And that's when I decided I would do all I could to become visible, to guide other people to become more visible for themselves, so that we could then reach more, get our voices out there, be seen, be heard, be remembered. And that remembering, that's often a catchphrase I use: be seen, be heard, be remembered. It's that remembering. It's about remembering who we are. It's about remembering that we have so much more potential, that we're filled with light, that we are here to do more than live on our as you said earlier, on our sofas watching TV. In any given moment, we can choose to have and be and do more. Now, I say this knowing full well I really like watching EastEnders. So it's a balance. It's a balance. How do we balance those things that are about us reaching and achieving and being our full potential, and living a life in the way that we are living life now in the 21st century? How do we balance those things up? And that's why other leaders, our work is needed, because not everyone understands how to look after finances, or how to look after mental health, or how to parent children well. And the fact that I now have podcast hosts who are international top ranking shows that are helping people in all different fields is very, very rewarding.
And I think what I've really heard from you today is how the lowest points in your life and the highest points in your life have served you equally and taken you on this journey. And you wouldn't be doing what you're doing had you not experienced both those highs and those lows.
Yeah, I would say that. I think when I have incredible highs and I've reached various pinnacles, in some ways it makes me think, well, this isn't what I thought it would be. And so what is more? Not because I'm dissatisfied, but the reality is not quite what you ever envisage. And I guess it's that striving for more. And I think as humans, we are looking for more, looking for expansion. We are here to expand and to create. And I don't know what I'll be doing in 5 years' time, because my life 5 years ago was completely different. And it doesn't matter, but it's about deciding that whatever direction I go in at any given time, I'm going to do that to the best of my ability, to the fullest of my ability, for as long as it serves me, as long as it interests me, and as long as it brings me joy, which is very different to a previous version of me, which would sit on all sorts of things I wanted, feeling angry and resentful that I couldn't because I might be judged.
And I think that's a really powerful message for people to take away, that to focus on your own journey, focus on your own things, and not worry about what anyone else is doing, and really think about your own purpose and put together your own plan. But really importantly, focus on your own why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And if it's not sitting right, I mean, you've mentioned all sorts of words of feeling trapped, being stuck, and all those other negativities. But the moment when you transitioned into the positive words, that was when you unlocked your potential.
I literally went in our house. I went from constantly saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't look after the kids, and I'm in so much pain, and my body hurts, and I'm so embarrassed, and I'm sorry, and I look a mess." That was literally my diatribe constantly, to my husband, to my parents, to anyone who came in to help me. I used to have a lot of friends who cared for me. My 4-year-old helped care for me. We decided that we were going to turn that off. And I literally did it as a result of that conversation. Instead, we had this mechanism where I would say to my husband once, "I'm having a healing day today." And that would be the only thing I would say. And it would mean that my husband then had to organise the childcare, sort out food, sort out everything. And I would not speak to anybody about it, because I knew that once I went down that road again, that I would feel bad, that I would be focusing on the bad. And there's a big difference between talking about pain and talking about healing. And when you start thinking about healing, it's about opportunity. So that one switch, I say one switch, I'm not going to pretend it was easy, but I could see, I had this glimmer that I could change how things felt. And that was the only thing I had that could have made my situation better. Only I could have made my situation better. And once I'd realized the power of that language change, that actually you can choose to do and be and say anything, well, then why aren't I doing this in other areas of my life? And don't get me wrong, it's not like everything is like roses at home. I'm still screaming banshee at the kids when I need to be, and when we're in lockdown for weeks on end. But very often now, I will catch myself. What is it I'm saying here? Do I want to keep saying that? Is it serving me? Or actually, is there other language that would support me? And instead of now saying to myself, well, I can't, and I don't know if I'll get there quick enough, or I won't get the results I want. For me now, it's much more like, well, this is going to be fun. How am I going to do it? And how quickly can I do that? And how direct a route can I take? And seeing what happens, seeing what comes up. Even 8 months ago, I didn't know that I would be launching a podcast membership, for example. I didn't know that I would narrow down and niche in that, but it makes sense at the time. So I will follow this for as long as it makes sense. And then if it doesn't bring me joy, it doesn't bring me satisfaction, then there will be something else that crops up and that I go in that direction.
And I think that's something that's so tangible for people to take away, that they can listen to their own language and they can change it. And you don't have to pay anyone for this. This is very simple. Start changing your language and following what it is you want instead of following what you don't want. Because people, when they're using language, they tend to not to know what they don't want. And they use that to say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. But the brain doesn't filter the difference between the negatives and the positives. It just hears the end bit. So instead of saying, I don't want to be overweight anymore, it actually hears, all it hears is overweight. So you need to change up your language.
And it makes you feel better.
It totally does. I totally get that. And I really want to say thank you so much for coming on today, Anna. How can people get hold of you?
All over social media. What would be great is if you come and listen to Entrepreneurs Get Visible podcast or buy my book, Get Visible, and look out for Podcasts with Impact. If you know that you are an emerging or aspiring leader, that should be coming out in the next couple of months, hopefully. But come find me. I'm all over Facebook, particularly, and LinkedIn. I'm pretty much a guest on every single podcast in the UK at the moment. So, but that's because I know that there's something in my story that someone somewhere might hear that could make a difference, and that's really powerful to me.
Absolutely. And if I could just finish off asking you the one thing that you would recommend people do right now.
Stop saying that they can't. Start working out how they can. And look at their language closely.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and become a member of the inspiring, uplifting, and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.